welcome to the May 2024 DMI Advocacy Update. And we are here with our good friend, Bill Connors, Executive Director of Smart Growth Madison, Greater Madison, an excellent organization. We're going to hear more about all things development here later on in the podcast. We want to say a huge thanks again to our partners who make this happen. Our major series sponsor, Scenair. We're going to hear from Chris Gillings, the Senior Vice President of Business Development for Scenair. We also want to say a thank you to the Fiore Companies and Hush Blackwell. So thank you to Scenair, Fiore Companies, and Hush Blackwell for your continued partnership of the Advocacy Update. Chris, how's it going today? How is everything at Scenair?
Good, Jason. Busy. Our friends at WIDA last week finally announced the tax credit awards for the state of Wisconsin for 2024, and so my plate's full at the moment. We're trying to look at all the different opportunities and places where we can hopefully get involved and help bring more affordable housing to the state.
Well, and some big news. I mean, you're taking over a couple of properties the last couple of days in the newspaper, I hear. Tell us more.
Yeah, long time, some negotiations with the city of Madison on Tree Lane Apartments and Rethke Terrace. My colleagues on our Scenair Solutions team, which is our development arm, have really been spearheading the charge there. But just looked at it as, with us being local and with our background in Scenair Solutions expertise in being able to manage healthy communities, we looked at it as a way to serve those residents. Right, they got caught in the misfortune of having the projects hit a confluence of COVID and a number of other things. And we want to help the city and help the community get those two deals back on their feet.
Well, Chris, thank you. Your stewardship of so many of the important projects and the continued work you do to improve our community is outstanding. And little known fact, Chris is one heck of a Little League baseball coach, spending a lot of time at West Madison Little League fields this summer, aren't we?
It's my summer home with 3 playing out there this year, Jason. I feel some days I need a yurt out behind one of the fences just to camp out so that I'm not incurring additional travel. But it's a lot of fun, and the kids have a blast with it, and it's another great way to build community too. So,
well, let me be clear. I'm all about eating at downtown Madison restaurants, but the food stand at the West Madison Little League is pretty good, isn't it?
Best ever. Shout out to Kathleen Schauder, who runs that over there. She does a fantastic job. And yes, if you're out there, it is the best concession stand that I have seen at a Little League park, bar none. Not even close. They do a great job.
He's not wrong. All right. See Chris all summer at West Madison Little League, directly across from the wonderful Exact Sciences and WMTV. All right, before we get to our friend Bill Connors with Smart Growth, going to give an update on advocacy happening here at Downtown Madison, Inc. First, there's been a lot of exciting projects that have won some funding or are going to try to win funding. We talked earlier about several housing projects, including 2 that received WIDA grants here in the last couple of days. We're excited for both the CDA project and the neighborhood house to start construction here in the next year or 2 to help add more affordable housing projects into the downtown. But there are 2 projects in particular that we're monitoring and hoping to support in any way we can for funding coming from other sources. The first is the Lake Monona Waterfront Project. They are putting in for a very large federal grant to help with phase 1 work on the John Nolan Causeway so they can help make reality the Sasaki vision for the Lake Monona Waterfront. This is an important grant they're looking for, and was $12 million to help kickstart phase 1 of the Lake Monona Waterfront Project. DMI is fully and heartily and zealously supportive of this catalytic project for downtown. We're hoping that the federal government sees our same passion and awards them a grant. Also, a little bit quieter, but a very important project as well. The city of Madison is putting, and our friends at Big Top Events and Breeze Stevens are putting in for a $4 million state grant to make some initial renovations to Breeze Stevens, which need to happen with the potential addition of highest level professional women's soccer coming into Madison. They need to add more stands, locker room space, new fields, some more amenities. So this state grant will help kickstart that project as well. Bree Stevens is a 98-year-old venue, which has really come to life again in the last couple of years with Forward Madison and the Radicals and the concerts. We had Willie Nelson just this last weekend. Let's do everything we can to help preserve this gem and help make it create more vibrancy and more economic strength in the Cap East section of downtown and in downtown in general. So we're wishing the best for both the Lake Monona waterfront and for the Bree Stevens projects. DMI, along with Alders Bennett and Govindarajan, are part of a public-private partnership to help the city's Housing Strategy Committee with coming up with recommendations for affordable student housing in the area. The group has met now 5 times and has begun their recommendation process, which we will submit to the Housing Strategy Committee sometime in late June. This is an excellent public-private partnership with UW, Neighborhood, Madison College, housing experts, you name it. The folks are there, and this group is coming up with a great list of recommendations already, and we're excited to hone in more on those recommendations at next meeting. This is a critical issue for the downtown with so many students living already in the downtown, and many are stretched by the budget. And so if there's ways that we can help create affordability for each individual, we would love to do that. Next up is our work under the Inclusiveness Committee and our Beyond Compliance Task Force. They are finishing work on training videos for streetery. Streetery is the seating and the activity that happens in the terrace, on the sidewalk, or in the street, sometimes in parking spots that businesses use, like we see on Pinckney and King Street. Well, by nature, many of those spaces are not accessible, right? Because they're very ad hoc. And so the Beyond Compliance Task Force, with our friends at the Disability Rights Commission, are doing great work in creating a series of training videos for all of those that pull the permits on what to do and what not to do, and be very positive overall, helping people with disabilities navigate the downtown space, and in particular, in and around streetery. Those videos should be out in June. We're very excited about all of the benefits that are going to come from training our great hospitality staff here in downtown. And last, but certainly not least, just 2 weeks ago, the city of Madison and our friends at Madison Central Business Improvement District launched Flock to State, which is a really interesting placemaking project on the 400 through 600 blocks of State Street. Every afternoon after 3 o'clock and every weekend after 10 a.m., those 3 blocks of State Street will be closed to all vehicular traffic except for an occasional emergency. And it's an experiment the city and the BID are running to see what could happen if we reimagine what State Street could look like in a more pedestrian fashion. So you'll see some minor changes. There's no large infrastructure changes, but you see some new seating, some planters, the painting on the street, some wonderful flamingo art, really trying to create a more vibrant atmosphere at the lower half of State Street. Our friends at Madison Central Business Improvement District have a robust calendar of programming in and around the street to bring even more folks, your dogs, your kids, you name it, down to State Street. Come and check it out and give your feedback. There are QR codes everywhere on the street to the city of Madison of what you like about this experience, because it will help inform what we all do as a community with State Street in a more permanent basis once the infrastructure needs to be changed out in the next half decade to decade or so. So please do come check out the Flock to State on the bottom of State Street. Lastly, just come see us downtown. Farmers Market is happening every week now. The night market is happening the second Thursday of every month. Come join us, eat a bunch of food, do a bunch of shopping in downtown. That's what is best. And on to our guest. It's good friend of DMI, and I would say a personal friend. That'll be my first question to him. It's Bill Connors, the executive director of Smart Growth Greater Madison. Bill, are you my friend?
Absolutely, Jason. Yes, very much so.
Yes. Oh, I feel much better. I feel much better. No, Bill is a wonderful person doing wonderful work in this community, has done it for years, whether or not as an elected official, as an attorney, working in the state legislature, you name it, Bill has a wonderful, wonderful history. And so we are excited to have him join us here today, and his role now Bill, you've been almost 3 years as executive director of Smart Growth Madison, Greater Madison.
Oh, I said, I think more like 4.
Oh,
Yeah,
time goes
yeah.
fast. Time goes fast. So for those members, let us know, what is Smart Growth Greater Madison?
Yeah. Well, Smart Growth started out as Smart Growth Madison about 21 years ago. And it was founded by a group of local real estate developers who felt like the Madison Common Council was making decisions and enacting new ordinances that were having an adverse impact on real estate development and the Madison economy in a way that appeared that they really didn't have complete information before they were making those decisions. So Smart Growth was founded to be able to provide that help to elected local government elected and appointed officials when they were considering new ordinances or plans or policies that would impact real estate development, be able to provide them with a more complete picture of what the ramifications were. And then along the way, it changed from Smart Growth Madison to Smart Growth Greater Madison. So the focus geographically is not just on Madison, but also on the surrounding communities.
Your bedrock of your work really is advocacy. It's about advocating what's happening and getting the development communities understanding of the system and what's happening out into the larger ethosphere, but also most importantly to policymakers. What current work are you working on in advocacy right now with Smart Growth?
Yeah, so I always have a long list of things I'm working on.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yes, yeah. So you mentioned the Madison Affordable Student Housing Work Group, very actively involved in that. I have been following along and participating to the extent I can in the effort to update the Madison Urban Design Commission's ordinance that has to do with its scope of authority and processes. Now we have a group of alders who are not on the Urban Design Commission who are also interested in that subject. That's what we've been working on quite a bit lately. I was actively involved in advising the Middleton Plan Commission and Common Council on their recently enacted new zoning code. And even though it's just freshly enacted, they're discovering some issues that they didn't didn't notice during the process of putting that new ordinance together. So continuing to advise them on clarifications of that new zoning code. Sun Prairie is about to kick off a process to create a new zoning code there. So I will be actively involved there. Smart Growth will be providing advice to Dane County cities, villages, and towns on implementing the roadmap to solving Dane County's housing crisis, which comes out of the Dane County regional housing strategy process. For those folks who aren't familiar with that, the underlying assumption for that roadmap is that Dane County, the whole county, needs to produce 7,000 new housing units every year from now until 2040 to keep up with, to make up for the backlog and to keep up with the influx of new people coming into the Dane County area because of the great economic opportunities and quality of life that we have here. We are doing so well that people are coming from all over to be here, and there's just isn't enough housing for them. So there's a lot of work to do there, and Smart Growth will be providing advice on things to do to implement that roadmap.
Well, just to give a frame of reference, how many housing units are we building on average per year now? I mean, what's the delta? Are we short significant amount?
I'm not sure where we're at countywide. I know in recent years there's been Madison, just city of Madison, I think has been permitting about 3,000 a year. That's been good enough to kind of keep up, but not to fill the hole, to fill the backlog. And so, yeah, I'm not sure the current county number.
So it seems like a significant amount of your advocacy work right now is in housing and really getting the developers to be part of public-private partnerships, to be part of the solution to creating more housing, which therefore helps with affordability, correct?
Yes, very much. I mean, what we want to do is be a partner, be at the table, be part of the conversation, rather than have local government officials and staff working on this in isolation. Why not involve the people who actually do it on a day-to-day basis, who are the experts? That's us. So that's what we're seeking to do. Is just, we don't expect them to do whatever we want them to do, but we hope that they'll involve us and use us as a resource to help make better policy.
Well, you certainly were a resource in the last couple of weeks. There's a bit of a homer statement because Downtown Madison Inc. and Smart Growth partnered on a research project comparing the approval timeline processes for buildings of 60 units or more over the last 5 years. Bill, how did this research come about, and what did the research that Downtown Madison Inc. and Smart Growth tell us about what's happening with the approval processes for projects in and around our community?
Yeah, well, I think the genesis for this was the work of the Madison Affordable Student Housing Work Group and the larger umbrella of the Madison Housing Strategy Committee. So we wanted to be able to provide just some basic data as a starting point for the conversation. It's always good to start with some data. And I want to thank Downtown Madison Inc. For making available the two policy researchers who did the lion's share of the work on this. Gabe and Luis were fabulous, and really, seriously, this never would have happened without those resources from DMI and the work of those two fine gentlemen. It just absolutely could not have happened without them. So thank you, DMI, for that. So yeah, we're looking at the timeline from sort of beginning of the formal process, which usually starts with a letter of intent from the developer to the city about what they're trying to do, and going from there and to the end of the process being the issuance of a building permit, so actual shovel can go in the ground. And so we were looking at 5 communities: Madison, Fitchburg, Sun Prairie, Middleton, and Verona. And we split that time frame for each of these projects between what we call the front end, which would be from the letter of intent to a final land use approval, and then a back end from final land use approval to the building permit. And in Madison's case, we added 30 days onto the front because Madison has an ordinance that says you can't even submit a letter of intent unless you first give 30 days notice to the alder that the project is coming, so the alder can start to organize the neighborhood participation in the process. And so we were looking at just at projects that were multi-family or mixed use that had 60 or more housing units. And the conclusions we reached, first of all, to the surprise of nobody who's ever done any sort of real estate development, it takes a long time to get through that process. The median time for almost every community was well over a year from that formal submission, or in Madison's case, 30 days before the formal submission, to actually getting a building permit so you can start. And of course, if you're a developer, you know that there's a lot of work that goes before you even get to that letter of intent. You've got a lot of planning you do, and then oftentimes you're working with staff at the city level before you ever get to that letter of intent. But anyway, it's a long process. And one of the other things we discovered out of this is that like 60 to 70% of that process time is the back end, and that's the part that most people don't see. The local government alders, their elected officials and their plan commissioners, they don't see that process. They only see the front end where they're having, plan commission meetings considering whether to grant a conditional use permit, for example. And that's kind of their universe. That's the part they see. But after that, there's a huge amount of work involving staff and the developer and contractors and engineers and architects to get to the point where all the conditions have been resolved and everything's ready to go, and you can finally get a building permit. So I thought that was one of the key findings of this, is that the more than half, substantially more than half in most cases of the time is after you get the final land use approval before you can finally get a building permit. And one of the other finding is we assume, I don't know, based on what I hear from our developer friends, that Madison's really not very good in this department, but we kind of discovered that Madison's kind of middle of the pack. And in fact, if you look at the total timeline, Madison was second fastest. Now if you break that down into the front half and back half, Madison was third in the front half time behind Fitchburg and Sun Prairie. And if you look at just the back half time, Madison was right in the middle of the pack, third behind Fitchburg and Verona. You notice I keep mentioning Fitchburg. Fitchburg's clearly the one that's moving the fastest on the front end and the back end. It isn't even close.
Well, this shows us some challenges and opportunities, right? The idea of this report was to really understand what was going on. We had heard from the development community and from the city that there, were some places, and one of those areas for potential opportunity for change is in the back end of the process. So what are those challenges and opportunities right now for the development committee coming off of both this report, but also just in general? So really two questions here. What from the report can we use to help advocate and move the process along and make it speedier? And then what are the other challenges and opportunities we're seeing in general in the development community right now in the greater Madison area?
Yeah, so coming off of the report, we're very happy that the city of Madison gathered their staff together and are seeking input from developers and engineers and architects, people who are part of smart growth, and other stakeholders about making that back end process better. And so Heather Stouter, who used to be the planning division director for the city of Madison, has now changed roles, and she's leading that project. That's wonderful. We have a great relationship with Heather, for starters, and have a great deal of confidence in her. And it appears this is a priority coming down from the mayor's office. So we're really hopeful that good things are coming in terms of working on that process to shorten that back end time in Madison. We think part of the struggle really in all the communities, but including Madison, is a lack of staff resources. There's just so much development work that needs to happen and is being proposed. They just don't have the staff resources to keep up using their existing processes. And so, because of the budget situation, they're not going to be able to solve that by just adding more staff. That really isn't an option. So the key thing is how can those processes be reworked so that they are more efficient, so that they are more transparent, so that the staff, the same amount of staff, can get much more done. Is the bottom line. So that is a challenge and an opportunity, and we're looking forward to being part of that process, to be an active partner working with Madison City staff to make that a better process. I guess in other things that comes to front of mind for me in terms of challenges that we're facing for development in Madison is that we have a great many older Madison neighborhood plans and special area plans that are they were created in a time where there wasn't this urgency, this dire need to produce more housing. And they're really out of step. They're really outdated. And so I refer to that as the tyranny of the old plans, because right now the Madison Planning Division staff believes that those old plans need to be followed very rigidly. Unless and until they are replaced. There is a process to replace them. The city has been divided into 12 planning areas, and they're working through creating new plans in each of those 12 areas, but that'll take, for the last plan, 10 years to get to the last plan. And so, particularly for downtown Madison, right now there's the old downtown plan, and there will eventually be a new downtown area plan. I just looked at the website That's scheduled, work on that new downtown area plan is scheduled currently to start in early 2026 and last into 2027. But then even after you've got a new downtown plan in 2027, there usually are ordinances that need to be enacted to implement that. For example, the zoning code in Madison has a height limit map in downtown Madison. That's an ordinance. That's not just in the plan. So that ordinance would need to get changed after the new plan is adopted. Now, I want to mention that Downtown Madison Inc. did great work. There was an interim comprehensive plan update process, and Downtown Madison Inc. used that as an opportunity to change height limits in the Regent Street area. That was a great accomplishment, but that was a kind of a one and done process. So for downtown Madison, it really is a matter of waiting until 2028 and to be able to get new things in place, to be able to facilitate more development, more, or maybe getting more out of each development. I mean, one of the things that we are greatly concerned about these whole plans is that you have a parcel or a group of parcels that are going to be redeveloped, and that if they get redeveloped, that's what they're going to be for 60, 80, 100 years. It's a long-term investment. And there are a limited number of those spaces, locations for redevelopment projects. And right now, the existing plans shrink the number of units you can put into each one of those opportunities. And once they're built, that opportunity is now gone for 60, 80, 100 years. So that, that's one of our concerns is what do we do in the interim where we have these outdated plans before we get the new plans in place, because they are unnecessarily shrinking the number of units that could go into redevelopment projects.
Well, yeah, certainly in downtown is an area where density is appropriate in many cases. So we are working with alders and with smart growth. It's actually, I think this shows exactly the importance of our relationship. My first question was, are we friends? And the answer is yes, because we work very closely on these issues, and we need to be adding density in and around downtown. The transportation networks are there. The amenities that people want to live are there. The grocery stores, the doctor's clinics, the work, it's all happening right here. It's a more sustainable way to build the city, but we need to have density in these locations. And it's not just the downtown plan, right? For those areas affected by DMI, it's also the Near East and the Near West plans. And we know the Near West plan and Near East are both after the downtown plan. And so figuring out what this looks like is a little bit of uncharted territory. These are newer plans for the city. They're larger than they used to be. These neighborhood plans we would see with Regent or, Marquette or whatever the area was. And so we really have to make sure we're working as a team on this. And I think it shows well the friendship that our two organizations have, that we're working so significantly. So Bill, thank you for all you do for downtown Madison. Thank you for all you do for DMI. We really do appreciate your friendship and your partnership in continuing to amplify the voice of the development community, who is so important when it comes to this affordable housing crisis that we are in. We simply just need to build more units. Not simply. That is one of the strategies, one of the main strategies that needs to be there. And you have been a zealous advocate for that. So Bill, thank you for your friendship and thank you for your leadership in the Madison community and in particular in downtown. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. And it's been great working with you, Jason, and all the people at DMI. With Smart Growth, we really appreciate the relationship that we have with DMI.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate our sponsors, our major series sponsors, Sinair, Fiore Companies, and Hush Blackwell for your partnership on the Advocacy Update. So thank you for joining the May Advocacy Update. Hopefully we'll see you downtown soon, eating a meal or shopping or doing something in the downtown. That's what creates the vibrancy we want. Thank you all for your support of DMI, and thank you all for your support of downtown Madison Inc. We'll see you downtown soon.